From the outside, their home looked like a dream, a two-story bungalow nestled on the serene streets of Enugu, Nigeria. Neighbors often whispered about how lucky Amara was to have married Uche, a wealthy businessman who always seemed to adore her. But behind the fancy gates and polished smiles, the silence in their home echoed louder than words. It had been 6 years of marriage, 6 years of waiting. And still, no child. Amara tried everything: fertility treatments, herbal mixtures, even fasting and night vigils. She was a primary school teacher with a gentle spirit, respected in the community. But behind closed doors, she cried herself to sleep, afraid Uche would one day stop loving her. In their culture, a woman's worth was often unfairly tied to her ability to bear children. And though Uche reassured her, "God's time is the best," he would say, his eyes grew colder with each passing year. Then came Ngozi. She was everything Amara wasn't. Loud. Flamboyant. Younger by nearly 10 years. Uche met her during one of his business trips to Port Harcourt. She worked at a lounge he frequented, first as a waitress, later as his escape. Within months, she had charmed her way into his world. And when she told him she was pregnant, he didn't hesitate. The day Uche confessed, Amara had just returned from her 3rd round of IVF. She hadn't even taken off her shoes when he looked her in the eyes and said, "Ngozi is pregnant, Amara. I'm going to be a father." The words hit her like a blade across the chest. Amara didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply walked past him, entered their bedroom, and shut the door. But inside her, something shattered beyond repair. In the weeks that followed, whispers turned into rumors. Uche stopped hiding it. He began taking Ngozi to public events, even introducing her to business associates. Amara watched her world unravel while the woman who took her place fronted a growing belly. But she didn't pack her bags. She stayed. Quietly. Observing. Planning. At night, while Uche slept beside her with the guilt of a man who had justified betrayal, Amara stared at the ceiling, asking herself the same question over and over again: what does a woman do when everything she's lived for is stolen from her? But she wasn't going to answer that question with tears anymore. Something had awakened in Amara. Something that had been sleeping under the weight of shame and silence for too long. And while Uche was preparing to become a father, Amara was preparing for something else. Amara began to change, though few noticed at first. She still wore the same soft smile, still greeted the neighbors warmly, still showed up to work every morning with her usual grace. But behind her calm eyes was a storm gathering force. She started asking quiet questions. About Ngozi. About the pregnancy. About Uche's business dealings. Not from him, he no longer shared anything with her, but from those around him. The gateman. The house help. Even her friend Ifeoma, whose cousin once worked as a receptionist at Ngozi's lounge. And slowly, piece by piece, Amara built a picture of the woman who had stepped into her marriage like it was an empty room. Ngozi wasn't just another woman. She was cunning. She had a history of dating wealthy, married men, using pregnancy as a trap. Uche wasn't her first. He was just the latest fool too desperate for an heir to see clearly. But this time, Ngozi had hit the jackpot. Uche was already renting her a new apartment in Independence Layout. Rumors said he planned to marry her in secret, once the baby was born. Still, Amara said nothing. One evening, as Uche prepared to travel to Abuja, Amara calmly packed his suitcase. "You've forgotten your phone charger," she said, handing it to him with the same gentle voice he had once adored. He paused. "Amara, are you okay?" She smiled. "I'm fine, Uche. Truly." And for the first time in months, he looked at her, not through her. He was confused. Maybe even guilty. But he left anyway, unaware that Amara had taken something from his drawer that morning, a spare set of keys to Ndozi's apartment. That night, she stood outside that building for nearly an hour, her heart pounding like war drums. But she didn't go in. She didn't need to. She already knew what she was capable of. What she could do if she wanted revenge. Instead, she turned and walked home in the dark, her mind brimming with a different plan, one that didn't involve violence, but would still shake Uche's world to the core. The next day, Amara filed for separation. Quietly. No scenes. No shouting matches. Just a lawyer, some documents, and her signature. Uche was served 2 days later. He returned home in a rage. So that's it? After all these years? You want to leave now? She met his eyes without flinching. You already left, Uche. I'm just catching up. He didn't expect that. He thought she'd cling. Cry. Beg. But Amara had no more tears to give. She was done mourning a marriage that had died long before Ngozi showed up. But Uche hadn't seen the last of her. What came next would leave him, and everyone around him, completely stunned. Because Amara's final move wasn't just for revenge. It was for redemption. Amara moved out of the house a week after filing for separation. She packed her things in silence, leaving behind the wedding photos, the shared memories, and the cold bed they had once dreamed of filling with children's laughter. She found a small flat on the quieter side of town, nothing extravagant, just a place where peace could grow. The whispers grew louder. Some blamed her. She couldn't give him a child, what did she expect? Others pitied her. But Amara ignored them all. Her focus had shifted. While Uche played house with Ngozi and prepared for fatherhood, Amara poured herself into something she had buried long ago, her passion for helping children. She remembered the words of her doctor, there are other ways to become a mother. And so she began volunteering at a local orphanage, House of Grace. It was a modest center with limited funds but overflowing with children, many abandoned, some rescued from the streets, all starved for love. At first, Amara came only on weekends. Then every evening. Then she started teaching the children, helping with supplies, organizing drives, even funding renovations using her personal savings. It wasn't long before one little girl changed everything. Her name was Zuri. She was 6 years old, with skin the color of roasted groundnuts and eyes that seemed too sad for her age. She had been dropped off by a relative after her parents died in a fire. Zuri didn't talk much, didn't laugh at all. But she clung to Amara's hand like it was her only lifeline. Weeks passed, and Zuri blossomed under Amara's care. Laughter returned to her face. She began calling Amara Mama. The word pierced through Amara's soul, melting something she thought was forever frozen. It was then that Amara made a decision. She began the process of adoption. Meanwhile, Uche's new life was spiraling. Ngozi, now visibly pregnant, had become increasingly demanding and aggressive. She spent money faster than he earned it, insulted his staff, and stirred constant drama. She accused him of cheating every time he took a phone call past 9 p.m. The glow that once blinded Uche had faded, now he saw her for who she truly was. But it was too late. Then came the paternity bombshell. At a routine checkup, a discrepancy led to further tests. The child wasn't his. Ngozi had lied. The news hit Uche like thunder without rain. He confronted her, but she laughed in his face. You think you were the only man? You were just the richest. Broken and humiliated, Uche tried to reach out to Amara. He called. Texted. Even came to her flat once, uninvited. But she met him outside and said one sentence that would haunt him forever. God didn't make me barren, Uche, he was saving my womb for something better. And with that, she walked back inside, where little Zuri waited with open arms. Zuri became the center of Amara's world. The adoption process, though slow and tangled with paperwork, finally concluded after months of background checks and social worker visits. On the day the final document was signed, Amara held Zuri close and whispered, "You are mine now. Forever." The little girl's eyes welled up with tears, not of sadness, but of a joy too deep for words. Motherhood wasn't what Amara had once imagined, no pregnancy cravings, no baby showers or ultrasound scans, but it was real, powerful, and beautiful in its own right. She learned to braid tiny hair with trembling fingers, helped with homework under the flicker of candlelight during blackouts, and stayed up all night comforting Zuri after nightmares. For every scar life had given her, Zuri brought a bomb. Meanwhile, Uche was drowning in shame. After the paternity fraud scandal broke, his reputation took a hit. Business partners distanced themselves. His parents, once silent spectators in his marital betrayal, expressed deep disappointment. Ndozi vanished shortly after the confrontation. Rumor had it she left for Ghana with another man. Uche was left with nothing but the echo of his own choices. One evening, he appeared at the orphanage. The staff hesitated, but Amara allowed him inside, on one condition: he would speak only to her, and not approach Zuri. "I came to say I'm sorry," Uche began, his voice hoarse. "I was foolish. I let pride and pressure destroy everything." Amara studied him, her expression unreadable. "You didn't just destroy a marriage, Uche. You destroyed trust. You wounded a woman who loved you when she had nothing but love to give." "I know." His shoulders slumped. "I know I don't deserve anything, not even your forgiveness. But I needed to say it." For a long moment, there was silence. Then Amara nodded slowly. "You're right, you don't deserve my forgiveness. But I'm giving it anyway." Uche looked up, startled. "Not for you," she continued. "But for me. For Zuri. Because I refuse to carry the bitterness of your sins into the future I'm building." A single tear rolled down Uche's cheek. "I'm glad you came," she added gently. "But this is where we part ways, Uche. You had a wife. A family. A future. And you threw it away. Now, I have all three, just not with you." She walked him out of the orphanage gates, where the sun was setting in streaks of gold and red. Back inside, Zuri was drawing with crayons. She looked up as Amara entered and smiled. "Mama, look. I drew us." Amara bent down. Two stick figures, one tall, one small, hand in hand under a giant heart. She kissed her daughter's forehead. "It's beautiful. Just like us." And for the first time in years, Amara knew peace, not because her life was perfect, but because she had made it whole again. Months passed, and Amara's life blossomed in ways she never imagined. She didn't just become Zuri's mother, she became an advocate, a voice for other women silently suffering in homes that praised perfection but hid pain. She began speaking at church gatherings and women's conferences, sharing her story, not to shame her past, but to inspire healing. Sometimes, she would say, "What looks like a curse is a redirection. I thought I was broken. But I was being prepared for something better." She started a foundation called Second Womb, dedicated to supporting women battling infertility, and offering financial and emotional aid for legal adoptions. Her story touched hearts far beyond Enugu. Interviews, TV invitations, even recognition from the State Ministry of Women Affairs began rolling in. But Amara never lost her humility. Her evenings still belonged to Zuri, cooking together, reading bedtime stories, whispering prayers before sleep. Uche, on the other hand, disappeared from the spotlight. His company was eventually bought out by investors. Rumors swirled about bankruptcy. He tried dating again, but trust never came easy after the Ndozi scandal. Friends distanced themselves. He lived in a rented flat, watching from afar as the woman he once betrayed rose like a phoenix from the ashes he left behind. One Sunday afternoon, he saw her on TV, graceful, confident, leading a workshop on women's mental health. Zuri sat beside her, giggling in a matching dress. Uche leaned back in his chair, tears stinging his eyes. He had built a house but lost a home. Chased an heir and lost a queen. All because he saw her womb as empty, never realizing how full her heart was. Amara's journey wasn't one of revenge, it was one of rebirth. She never gloated in Uche's downfall. Instead, she used her pain to pave paths for others. And in doing so, she healed not just herself, but an entire community of women who finally saw that their worth wasn't tied to motherhood, but to their strength, resilience, and kindness. One quiet evening, Zuri sat on Amara's lap as they watched the stars from their balcony. "Mama," she whispered, "do you think God gave me to you because He knew I needed you more than anyone else?" Amara smiled, brushing back her daughter's hair. "No, my love. I think He gave us to each other because He knew we both needed love, real love." The stars twinkled above, quiet witnesses to a story of betrayal, transformation, and unexpected grace. And so, the woman once dismissed as barren became a mother not by blood, but by courage. She lost a marriage, but found her voice. She was betrayed, but never broken. Because sometimes, the most painful endings are just the beginning of something far more beautiful.